On this episode of the John1911 Podcast, 300 tons of gravel, a significant development, the truth about government procurement, and a Daewoo update. Okay, good afternoon, everybody. This is Karken and Marky, and this is episode 377 of the long-lost John1911 Podcast. Today is Friday, July 25th, 1:40 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I feel like I have the timestamp stuff because, you know, like every 2 hours there's a SIG blowing up somewhere. And so by the time this podcast is over, for all we know, Pete Hegseth's going to come out and, yank these things from service. So, all right. Well, before we get into all that, how you been, stranger?
Oh, been kind of busy. Just cranking out some school, learning how to fix stuff I break on my side-by-side, my boat and such, and dinking around in the armory when I get time. Other than that, not a whole lot. How about you?
I've been becoming a Bobcat operator, apparently. I've got rid of the Bobcat. Now I'm using the tractor to put gravel down. So the parking lot is basically built at the range. I'm at the range. Parking lot's built. Road to the pit is 95% built. The gravel's down. I gotta fluff a few corners.
Mm-hmm.
It's a little light. And there's a new culvert bridge. It's not pretty because it needs to be deeper, but you know what? It's there. So it's good enough for us. I drove the tractor across it. It didn't collapse. So it works.
Yeah.
So
I've got to rebuild about 30 yards of steep driveway. We got right at 6 inches of rain in about 4 hours.
That's right. You
2
did
days
tell me
ago.
that.
And man, this is a real steep incline anyway, so it washes out, if a deer pees on it. But 6 inches in 4 hours, it's really got it tore up.
That's like, an old, Faces of Death video or something. Like 6 inches in, like that's crazy.
Yeah.
That's like what happens down there in Texas, maybe with all the flooding with those little girl camps down there. So.
Yeah. And it wasn't even that good slow rain that soaks in. It just comes so hard, so fast. It's just, washes everything out and doesn't soak in as much as it should have. But yeah, it's a mess. I've got to get the big box blade hooked up. And right now it's just too gooey to even try and get out there and box blade it.
Yeah. Yeah. We've had a fair amount of rain here too, but it was weird. Because, part of the reason why I did this myself is because I didn't want to be held hostage by contractors that disappear. And it's not all their fault. It's just because, look, some city calls or some municipality or some sewer line breaks, and John1911's at the bottom of the totem pole. So, they disappear. And then if it's wet, they're not working. And I literally was building this parking lot. It was thunderstorming. Mm-hmm. And I was literally just taking gravel, scooping it, and it was like, like the theoretical, like on a cartoon, you build a bridge, and, like as you build it, you go out farther on it. That's literally what I was doing in the rain with the tractor.
Yeah.
And, the gravel's pretty thick, though, because I've had to I call it a French drain, but there's the porch, where all this is, the porch, mm-hmm. and then, the side of the barn. There was always a lot of standing water there and weight at all pitches. So I dug a trench and then filled and took that out to a point where and I graded it down so it flows out. And then I filled that with 2-inch rock because I couldn't put in like DRB or stuff down the powder because I needed to stay drained. So there's areas of that. It's over 2 feet deep.
Yeah.
So. Which is why, because I calculated it yesterday, it's like, how much gravel have I bought? Came out to 300 tons. And it's like, I knew it was going to get up there. And it was like, I don't know, is 300 tons a lot? And I've got an answer. It's like, well, 300 tons for a parking lot at the John1911 range is not a lot. 300 tons for an NFL cheerleading squad, that's a lot. So I figure if that works out, that's fine. I've actually got 40 tons sitting right outside this door next to me that I've got to, they dropped it off on Monday, and it's been sitting here all week. I've been too busy, but just to do my final grade and my fluff on the road and all that. So 300 tons is where we're at. I spent $7,500 on gravel.
That's not bad for that much delivered.
Yeah, considering where they have to bring the gravel in from.
Yeah.
I mean, the quarry is not close. So, it's like, well, okay. I mean, that's, this job would have been minimum $15,000, probably would have been closer to 20 if I'd had the pros do it, and they'd still be doing it in September.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah. So,
yeah, it's crazy building just gravel driveways, and I've got a guy that brings me crushed asphalt. So towards the end of the summer, when the rainy season's kind of over, but before we get into the fall rainy season, I get a couple of loads of crushed asphalt to put on my incline,
okay.
and that works really good. But even that stuff washes away as heavy as it is. So I don't know.
Yeah, there's a product that I got out here initially when you're next to the shipping container. There's a little pad everybody can see it on the social media when we publish stuff, but no one really pays attention to it. It's a little pad right next to the shipping container, and like the trailer would sit on it. I'd park the truck on it, we'd load up and go down into the rifle range.
Mm-hmm.
And it's only had one application ever put down. Like, it's never been dressed. It's never been fluffed. It's never had more stuff put on top of it. And like literally, it's so flat, but nothing really will grow through it, hardly. And they call it slag. And I guess it's left over from what they do at the steel mill or something. Like, it's rock with iron in it, maybe.
Okay.
Or maybe, like, I mean, I've heard a rumor that whatever this stuff is, they're not really allowed to use it on like residential driveways or like, because it might give you cancer. I'm not really sure. Like, it's just, I don't know, like maybe it's not good for the, I know it's like more industrial heavy stuff, and the construction guys like it for certain things. They use it for their parking pads.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, that shit is like, it's weird. It's like the thinnest layer. It's not like metal, but it looks like steel. It looks like rusty steel, but it's rock, and it's not thick. And there's a few things that have popped up, but it's like you never have to spray it. You never have to, put anything on it. You don't have to drag it. It's like, it's interesting. It's probably, it's probably a super fun site. Like 20 years from now, they'll be like, freaking John 1911, crazy ass bullshit out there. We will have thought that the rifle range and all the mitigation of the lead would have been the issue. It turns out to be that little equipment pad that I put out 9 years ago is the one thing that's like really bad. So
the equipment pad and the radioactive burn barrel.
Yeah. Well, you know what? Did I tell you I bought a Geiger counter to check that?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So that came clean. Don't start any rumors. There's no radiation out here. That burn barrel is not radioactive. Mongo basically shamed me into getting the Geiger counter. I was like, I don't buy a Geiger. I was kind of surprised at how small Geiger counters are. They're about the size of like an iPhone. I was like, okay, because I thought it'd be like, something you see in a movie. So, but yeah, that came in clean. Hey, speaking of mitigation and gun ranges and all this, I saw this, and I guess a lot of people know it, but I didn't know it. So, Clint Smith, Thunder Ranch, they did sell Thunder Ranch. Like, they had been listing it for sale. I don't remember what they were asking for it, but it was it $14 million? Because he's got 900.
I don't know if I ever saw a number, but I mean, it was not going to be cheap.
Yeah, I did see a number.
You're buying a lot of name.
It was going around with brokers,
Mhm.
And I can't remember, but I was like, wow. And he's got like 900 acres. Well, he sold that. I guess eventually, nope. I guess they wanted a big way. Again, I'm assuming if you work at Thunder Ranch or you're associated with Thunder Ranch, and I'm wild ass wrong. I'm not trying to insult you. I'm kind of guessing. And again, I'm east of the Mississippi. I have no idea. But, kind of look at it and you're thinking, well, maybe some wealthy patron of Thunder Ranch will buy it. And I don't think that quite happened, or maybe it did. But I think now they had sold the facility and I believe the IP, like Thunder Ranch, the name and all that. So the school's functioning, and I think it might have been to like a group of the instructors. Like the school's still functioning. Well, I'm telling you all that to tell you this. Apparently, last week, uh, Clint and Heidi Smith, they moved to is it Montana? They moved to Montana. They bought a house in Montana and they moved. Did I lose you?
No, I'm still here.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I mean, like, I thought that was interesting. I guess they wanted to retire and they're doing construction. I think Clint says you kind of get the idea that maybe he'll do some teaching. I don't know. I was kind of, what they publish on the internet, he's not way out. Like, you can see other property around him. It's not super close, but yeah, I thought that was kind of interesting. Like, he's south of, basically, if you were going to drive from, what is it? So, is it Bozeman's in the is in Montana? Refresh my memory because I've been there once. So is Billings the city with the airport, and then Bozeman is farther east,
I
or is
think
it
Billings is the state
reversed?
capital, isn't it?
Then it's Billings. So okay,
Yeah.
so I believe he's south of Billings, fairly significantly south. He's actually, it looks like he may be south of some kind of mountain range, but still in Montana. So like if you were to go from Billings and drive to Cody in Wyoming, um, you won't drive past his house, but you would get off at some point because it's desolate when you make that drive. And he's back in there. I mean, there's a bunch of people back there. I mean, you can tell by the houses, but that's kind of where I think they're at. Now, I'm not trying to like stalk the man, but I was like, oh, what's going on here? And you just kind of can look at the mountain ranges and kind of look where they said, and it's like, I think I kind of know where he's at. And I just thought that was interesting,
Kind of get a feel for it. Yeah. I
Yeah,
don't
like,
know. I don't know if Clint's much of a hunter or not, but uh, I could definitely, just from the little bit I know about him, see him retiring in Montana and uh, making some type of a range and maybe a small training facility. Because I just can't see somebody like him getting totally out, but scaling it down to the point where he just does what he wants, when he wants, if he wants. He's not beholden to a schedule of any kind.
yeah. Well, Oregon's been kind of shady for a while.
Yeah.
And, I remember him years ago saying, I believe his wife, Heidi, if I remember correctly, Heidi's mom lived north of Thunder Ranch, Oregon. And I don't remember if she was like up in Washington state or if she was in Canada. Like, I don't know. I don't remember.
Mhm.
But like them being up there was really helping out Heidi being able to spend time and take care of her mother. I don't know why. I don't know. I really don't know these people. And I just, there's something he had said in like some interview or something. And I remembered it. And so, and I think maybe his mother-in-law has passed and they're getting older. So they moved to Montana. I'm going somewhere with this. It's like, okay, because Oregon, they've got bears and fires and, all the normal stuff up there in the winters. It's like, well, if they want to retire and they kind of don't want to do that, I don't know how different uh, Montana is. Like that seems like the same. It's just probably not as liberal. You know what I mean? Like it's
That's
not.
probably the big thing right there is it's not as liberal. The politics are friendlier, and depending on what part of Oregon you're in, there's going to be an environmental change there. Uh, you're probably going to escape some of the Pacific Northwest rainy season.
Yeah, if I remember, I've looked at. I think Thunder Ranch. Again, everybody listening to this knows where Thunder Ranch is, and I kind of don't. If I remember, because actually, I think I looked it up when it came up for sale. I feel like Thunder Ranch is in the southwestern coastal region of Oregon. Like it's not in eastern Oregon like all those people that want to break away and become part of Idaho. But like when
Yeah,
they included those people that want to break the breakawayers, they drew it all the way out. I think it would have covered Thunder Ranch, but he's there. He's actually kind of like I would call it like the pot grower side of Oregon, like where all the illegal grow operations and people are taking stuff into California. He's over on that side. That would be my impression from someone living in Ohio. So, and I could be wrong. Send me a message. It's fine. Let me know. Don't be shitty
yeah,
about it. I mean, I'm a fan. I like the guy. I just thought it was interesting, and it's like I don't know. I mean, it would be interesting. Maybe there'll be an opportunity to go if people that would want to do it. I don't know. Let's say he's like, I will do one class. I'll do 1 day classes. Once a month on my little square range, and it'll be on a Saturday. So you could come in on a Friday and then, whatever but it'll be 1 day class. So he can just do it for a day. And then he's like, it's $1,000 and I can handle 8 people. And it's like, I don't know. Like, you never know that's a possibility,
yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you
And,
never know
and
what's
that
going to
gets
happen.
back to that when he wants to, how he wants to, you know.
Hmm. Yeah. I know he likes a lot of those old guns. He likes Sharps rifles and cowboy guns and he's just a degenerate gun guy like the rest of us.
Yeah.
But some of that stuff he likes, I think, obviously works real well out there. And there are some long range facilities out there in Montana. Um, like if you want to shoot, like if you want to shoot 1,000, 1,200 yards or longer with that BP, black powder center fire rifle BPCR. I mean,
Mhm.
they've got long ass ranges out there. Like there's, it's, I mean, whereas like Thunder Ranch, he has to maintain all this property, and uh, he's got to maintain it, and he's got to pay the freight on it, and be exposed to fire. I think like the biggest thing like with Thunder Ranch was always fire for them. Fire was like a big problem for them. Whereas he can be an old man and have his little, whatever he's got. I don't know if he's got 5 acres. You can't tell. I don't know. I just don't know what's going on out there. I just kind of seen where their house is kind of, and he could easily
Mhm.
just end up at some long range, whatever, if he wanted to shoot or, have a class or something. Like, again, the man's trying to retire and we're trying to talk him into doing classes. So, like, I just thought that was interesting because, what's his name? Um, who's the guy they always say is Obi-Wan Kenobi? Um, Larry Vickers' buddy. This guy was, he was on Wilson Combat's, uh, Ken Hackathorn. Ken
Oh,
Hackathorn,
okay. Yeah.
yeah, Ken Hackathorn has a piece of property. I think he's in Idaho, and he's got a small range on it because he's had a couple. He's had Wilson Combat out, and I think he's had some. I don't know who this guy is. There's this kid. He's on the internet. He does videos. His name is Duckworth. I don't know what his first name is, but I guess his social media's got the word duck in it.
Yeah.
So he's gone out to Ken Hackathorn's house. And I don't know, I guess Ken Hackathorn might do classes, or he does maybe just has his friends over. But Ken Hackathorn maintains a small little range, where he lives, and like it's hard to give up. If you're a gun guy, having a place to shoot is kind of a big deal. It'd be hard to give that up. Um,
Well, that
so
was
I'd
one of
say,
the attractions of my property was, the first thing I looked at when we looked at this place was I can put a pistol range right here. Step out the front door.
you know what? You should
Uh,
describe to the listener what your because your property's pretty interesting. Describe to the listener what your property's like.
so on the Missouri River, on either side of the Missouri River, where the glacier cut the river out, you have what's called bluffs, which are, in the Midwest, mini mountains. So I'm on the Nebraska side of the Missouri River, clear down in the very far southeast corner. And I'm on the last set of bluffs before it goes down into the Missouri River bottom. So you have to drive about a half-mile lane through the forest, literally, to get to the top of the bluff where we've just carved out a big enough space for the house, a couple outbuildings, and a range.
Mm-hmm.
And then I've got about 20 yards of backyard is all, but then it's about 250 foot straight down to the river bottom. I mean, it's just sheer. If it wasn't treed up, if it wasn't full of trees, it'd only take you about 10 seconds to roll to the bottom. But it's just complete oak, walnut, cottonwood, every kind of tree you can think of. It's heavily forested. So if I'm standing on my back deck, if I look straight down, it's Missouri River bottom on the Nebraska side. Then I have the Missouri River. Looking east across the river is Iowa. And if I look about 10 degrees to the southeast, I can see Missouri.
So you basically have in your area, you have the Nebraska equivalent of Arlington. You could roll some cannon up there, and you could control you could control
Oh,
the
I
whole area.
definitely control the high ground.
Yeah, because
When the wife
yeah.
and I looked at this place, we were standing on the back deck, and the realtor was saying, well, that's Nebraska, that's Iowa, that's Missouri. And without even thinking, I just said, oh, so I can whack people from, 3 states and from my back patio. And she got real quiet, and she looks at my wife and says, is he serious? And my wife looks at her just deadpan as can be and says, you never know with him.
Oh God. Yeah, until you end up at channel, ABC News with the microphone in somebody's face. He made a joke one time. So, but yeah, I look at like your property is either like a cross between like the heights of Arlington overlooking Washington or Masada, where the Jews held off the Romans. Like, because I've noted like your property, like I mean, it's incredible. Like it's like I mean it looks like a mountaintop in West Virginia, stuff I grew up around. And I know
Very
you told me,
similar, yeah.
yeah, yeah. And you would think it was a fuck ton of money, and it was like you got a deal on that. I think you did real well on that property. I think you did.
Two things worked in my favor. We closed right before COVID hit and the economy went crazy. Uh, and it's far enough away from a major city that city money couldn't buy it and make the commute to work. And it's a very rural, I don't want to say economically depressed area because you can make an honest blue collar living around here, nice middle class, no problem.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but for the money they wanted for this, punching out widgets at the local factory was probably going to be a bit of a stretch for most people. But when we saw the price on it, I told the wife, I said, there's got to be a rat in the woodpile here. It's too cheap. Just judging by pictures. I was actually in Tennessee on business when she sent me the link to it. And she's like, you call the realtor and you talk to her. So I just said, what's up? Is what's hidden that we're not seeing? Where's the rat in the woodpile? And she says, there's really no rat in the woodpile. If you move this property 40, 50 miles north, then city money could come by it and it would be probably close to $1 million property. Oh, okay. Well, I guess we'll come look at it. And then once I got down here in the area, it's like, well, yeah, it's, that's kind of what it is economically. There's just not a lot of big city money down here because you just can't make the commute. So we stole it. At least I consider it stealing it. And then the price of land has went up and everything. And I haven't quite doubled my money on it on assessed value, but I'm pretty darn close in 5 years.
Oh yeah. I mean that property in West Virginia in some areas is $1 million or $2 million view.
Hmm.
And like people are like West Virginia is so poor. It is poor, but I'm telling you, there's still views in West Virginia where you're like, holy shit, and that's like your property's like holy shit. You could be. I mean, like that. Your property, you could either be up there with artillery or you could run a weather station because you can watch it. Come like,
Well,
okay,
and
it's
that's the
coming in
fun
from the
thing in the
west.
winter. You can see a winter storm just kind of roll down through the valley. You can literally see the snow from the north just rolling down the valley and coming in if you catch it right timing
Yep.
wise.
Yep. I used to see that in West Virginia. That was always the neatest thing. Watch the weather come across the mountains
Yep.
and come
Well, we're
across the
high enough
valleys.
up on the hill that when there's heavy fog, the river bottom below me, I think I've sent you pictures before, but the river bottom below me, it actually looks like clouds if you were flying at altitude in an airplane.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of
Excuse
times
me.
what'll happen, you'll see it like when the temperature changes, you'll see the fog, it starts to roll down into those valleys
Hmm.
and you can watch
Exactly.
it go down below you. Yeah, I always loved that as a kid. So, yeah, your property kind of reminds me in many ways. I mean, well, I will say this, your property, because typically in West Virginia, unless you're on the highest mountains, you can't see for 10 miles. Or you can't see for like 5, 6, 7 miles. You can
Hmm.
see for a couple miles, but you can't see forever. Your property, you can see forever. So yeah, like
Yeah,
it's
it's pretty
really
cool.
interesting. Yeah. So you're gonna put up a range up there and in your retirement and charge people without $8,000 a day for one-on-one classes.
Well, kind of, sort of. I've already got a pistol range set up. The problem is, uh, everything's so heavily wooded that without doing major tree removal and dirt work, I can't even get 100 yard sight in range up here. I have to go somewhere else to just to sight in at 100 yards. So I've got a really nice pistol range set up with steel and such, but I kind of like my anonymity up here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, one of the other unique things about this property is you can punch in the address on your GPS, and about 70% of the time, it will take you completely away from where you're supposed to be and try and tell you to drive right down a boat ramp into the Missouri River. So I could give you my address and you could drive out here, but I'd have to tell you, meet me here in this town and follow me out. Otherwise, you're going to get to the Missouri River and think you've been pranked,
Yeah.
because there's just something about the way this is laid out and where the roads are and such as that, and the way some of these back ass country roads are. GPS takes you 10 miles from my house and literally tries to tell you to keep driving right into the Missouri River.
Now, look, I understand, stuff being off and stuff not taking people to the right places, but 10 miles away from where it's
Uh huh.
supposed to be, that's crazy.
Yep.
All right.
It took Nebraska Furniture Mart 5 times to finally get my refrigerator delivered, and it turned into, you meet me in this town at this time and then follow me out, because I'm not going through this for a sixth time.
Hmm. Well, I guess we better start talking about some gun stuff because that's what people want. That's what they're here for. Got to give the people what they want. They don't
Yep.
want to hear about 300 ton of gravel and you're up there like freaking the Walton family, you know, hiding out on
Kraken's
your mountain,
Mountain.
Kraken's Mountain. Yeah, Kraken's Mountain. Um, there's an update. You remember how at SHOT Show, the company SNT, which used to be Daewoo in South Korea,
Hmm.
came and they're like, we're gonna do the Daewoo guns. We're gonna bring the Daewoo guns in, and they, and they've come out and released something, and there's a quote, literally, they said, we don't do things because they're easy. We do them because we thought they would be easy, but that's not going to stop us. We're still going to do it. And they said they're going to start, they gave an update. They said they're going to start selling K2, the Daewoo K2 rifles, parts and parts kits at the end of 2025 in the US. So if you need parts, they'll be into 2025. And they said there will be K2 rifles and K2, that Daewoo pistol, the triple action pistol. We've got one. Those pistols, they will be first quarter 2026. They gave a price on the Daewoo pistol was like $499, and I think they gave a price on the K2 rifle. What was it? 1,700, 14, 15, 16, 17. I mean, it wasn't. It's not crazy.
Mm-mm.
And you can already start to see it's starting to pull down some of the Daewoo prices again on the secondary market, the K2, K100s, all those guns, because
Yeah.
we're in the market for one. And I've hated the prices. And we've got, I don't know, like one of the sub guns, the K1A1, whatever it is. But it's like, yeah, I think it looks like that's going to happen. I think they're absolutely coming. They're bringing shit into the U.S. They've decided. I mean, they're making them. Like they make all this stuff for South Korea, and they do. Like if you see these South Korean K2 gun, all these Daewoo rifles, they've got all kinds of features and models, and M-lock and pick rails, and I wouldn't be surprised they got stuff with ARCA rails on it. These guns are tricked out. They're making all this stuff, and it's like, well, they might as well sell it in the U.S. because they're already making it.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, I'm impressed. I hope that hopefully that happens. Maybe I doubt that they'd want to give us a T&E. I mean, we'd buy it, but when they come, we'll definitely be picking one of those up. So that's interesting news, I think, for a lot of people. What else is there?
Well, and it's $1,700. You can put it in the reference collection and not have a ton of money tied up for what it is.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of these K2s that are for sale right now, I mean, they're like $2,800. People want $3,000. I've seen some people want like almost $4,000. It's like they're not getting it; they're listing it. Like mostly on Gunbroker. It's people on Gunbroker, but and I think I think realistically right now, in my opinion, what the market is saying is I think the K2 rifles, the old ones, the original ones, unmodified without thumbhole stock, in my opinion, are worth $1,800. I hate the price, but I think that's a fair price. Anything above $1,800 to me is insane. And what do you know? SNT in South Korea is coming in right at like $1,799.
Yep,
And that's
that's
like,
not by accident.
that is not by accident. They're parking it right where they think people are willing to go. It's brand new, get parts, and that's the important thing with these guns. You've got to be able to get parts because as a matter of fact, there used to be a I don't know if you remember this. There was a guy. He had a website. What did he call himself? Was it like K2 parts or Daewoo parts or whatever? But he had a website, and all he did is he did parts for Daewoo rifles, and he would bring stuff. He would bring parts in, and then he would occasionally have stuff made. And it was a boutique website until he finally went out of business. Not because it wasn't really working, it just wasn't worth his time. It was really a hobby. And he tried to, I remember he listed his website and all his inventory for sale. And I went through the inventory. I mean, what was he? I think he was trying to get 40 grand. And then it got down to, I don't know, maybe it was like, I don't remember what the number was. And I don't know what the ultimate, I don't know if it, maybe like Ajax or somebody or Numerich bought them. But like he had a conversion. And I don't know if he was bringing this in from South Korea or if he was having it made. But the Daewoo, one of the things that the Daewoo that will piss people off in the U.S. is the selector switch. They're safe because the gun's basically an AR kinda. I mean, people are going to disagree with me, but you can tell like there's a lot of AR. It's not an AR, but there's it's an AR-18, AR-180, but it's got like a lot of AR influences. But
Mm-hmm.
what they did is the selector switch it's on safe, just like on on an AR-15, and then semi-automatic fire, you have to rotate that switch 180 degrees to get it to semi-auto fire. And it's just like, it sucks. That selector switch kills that gun for like actual use. But people were coming up with some kind of new drum to make it like a 90-degree throw.
Yeah.
And it'd be interesting to see but if you can get parts from SMT Daewoo and all, I mean, I don't know, that could be a whole new genre of gun. People are just kind of tired of ARs a little bit. They want something different, and especially if you can get parts for them.
But are the parts going to be backwards compatible with the original models, though?
I believe they are. It's the
That
same
would be
gun. I mean, it's backwards compatible in the same way that an M16A1 is compatible with an M16A4.
Yeah.
They're fundamentally the same gun. There may be some small tweaks or things that maybe but hand guards, barrel nuts, or like all that stuff's compatible. They're not radically different. They're radically different, just accessorized, but they're not crazy different. There may be some generational, bolt carrier change or something, but I don't think I could be wrong because no one's seen these guns in the U.S. I haven't, but I'm not under the impression that there's like crazy changes because I think even S&T positioned the parts that they want to bring in is like, hey, we got all the parts you want for you Daewoo guys out there. Like we're gonna bring in the parts for you. You guys need parts? You want parts? We got parts. So I was like,
Well, and if
okay.
they can do it all on the same line, if this part will go in the new production gun and this part will also go in the older original models, then we're killing two birds with one stone. There's two markets we're breaking into for the price of one.
Yeah, there might be some differences between like maybe stocks because that original Daewoo stock is like this weird hinge folding thing, but it's actually kind of nice. But the new stuff, like all the new service rifles that South Korea runs, if I remember looking at them, I haven't seen one in a few months, pictures of them, but they all kind of use like an AR-15 tube system.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Buffer tube. So
Yep.
you may not be able to bolt one of those onto another directly. Who knows? I have no idea. So, but yeah, I thought that was definitely worth mentioning because it's some interesting gun news. So, all right, okay. Look, we're gonna play a game. I'm gonna be like This is like Dungeons and Dragons, and you get to decide, player, which
I'm
which which
not
which
I'm not a nerd, so I've never played Dungeons and
so
Dragons.
so which dragon do you want to go after? Do you want to talk about Jeffrey Epstein, which has been talked about to death, and we're behind? I'm behind. It's my fault, not you. It's me. My fault with the podcast. You want to talk about Jeffrey Epstein and all that bullshit? Or behind door number 2 in this dragon, do you want to talk about the latest SIG-incident, as you call it?
Well, it's a pretty significant incident, so let's slay that dragon first.
All right. Significant. There's the title. Significant. All right. I almost go ahead and okay, look, I was doing stuff. I was actually out of town a little bit. And you sent me the document from Global Strike Command. So I'm going to give you the honor in case there is a listener that possibly hasn't heard any of this. What's going on with the SIG P320 as of Friday? Hold on. Friday, whatever today is. Friday the 25th, at whatever time. Tell a listener what's going on. Why are we talking about SIGs again?
Well, basically, what happened a couple of days ago, a rocket memo came out of Global Strike Command that put on indefinite pause the issuance, training, usage of the M17, M18 modular handgun system. And it was a little slow developing at first. I picked the memo up off of another gun trainer's page and shared it with Marky, and we started doing some follow up on it. But the long and the short of it is there was what's being reported as an uncommanded discharge of an M18 during a morning briefing at which Air Force base at Cheyenne was that? Not Cheyenne Mountain, but
Effie Warren.
Effie Warren. An airman took a holstered M18 off of the QLS clip on his holster rig. The gun's still in the holster. Set it on the table, and somewhere in that process of setting it on the table, the gun discharged and struck another airman and killed him. So supposedly, what?
Oh, did it strike another airman or did it strike him?
Well, I've heard both versions. So
Okay.
barring something officially coming out, which the investigation is still going on. One way I've heard it told is it struck him. Another way I've heard it told was it struck another airman. But regardless, an airman was fatally wounded because of what's being reported as an uncommanded discharge of a holstered M18. So it basically deadlined for that entire command the M18 or the M17 if it's being issued. And instead, everybody that's required to be armed is being issued M4s. And in the memo, they also put in there if mission require, and I'm paraphrasing, but if mission requirements require a handgun, they're to seek further guidance and not just go ahead and issue an M18. It's worded in such a way that it is, for the military, remarkably clear that there are no workarounds to issue this M18 in any circumstance until the investigation's over and they decide what they're going to do with it.
So I have an update. So before I went to bed last night, I mean, I'm sure everybody had it, but I saw it, Mr. Guns and Gear, so we put it on the Facebook page. The airman who was killed has been identified as 21-year-old Braden, Brayden, Lovan, Lovan, from Greenville, Kentucky. I don't know where Greenville, Kentucky is, but it probably isn't that far. Basically, I'm told it's Louisville, so he's not that far at all. Stationed at Effie Warren Air Force Base in Wyoming. Say Lovan was assigned to the 90th Security Forces Squadron, which is part of the 90th Missile Wing, which is part of Global Strike Command. And for a lot of people, like maybe less, our old dogs, you would know Global Strike Command as Strategic Air Command. That's what it used to be, and then they renamed it. So that's kind of who these people are. And what's interesting is, and we've talked about this in reference to the SIG P320, and a lot of people, we get these guys, and it's not just us, everybody, you'll get it in all the comment sections. I've had X gun for 2, 3, 4 years, and I've never had a problem with it. But what ends up happening is you start looking at where there's problems, and it's happening to police officers. And it's like, okay, well, this guy who is, Airman Lovan, he is in essence the security forces. He's a police officer. Like he's secured. I mean, especially these, it looks like he's at a missile base, like ICBM base. Like those security forces, they're basically function as like infantry. Like they have the ability to fight off, the whole. It's a typical, what if for some reason a Spetsnaz battalion gets airdropped on your base? You know what I mean? Or like some saboteurs come on your base to try to take over a missile silo or something. They're not just like rent-a-cops. They do all that, plus they have the ability to hurt you if you come with friends. And so, but my point is, just like police officers in your town, these dudes walk around all day with guns in holsters. And what are we seeing with most of these problems? It's who carries more in America, or really around the world, when it comes to handguns. Very few people carry pistols more than police officers, or people that have a job that looks like police officer jobs. Because if they're part-time, if you want, you can use whatever disparaging comment you want about cops or rent-a-cops or security guards or security forces or whatever. But if they work part-time, that gun's in a holster on their body. If they work 20 hours a week, that gun's in a holster on their body for 20 hours. If they work 40 hours a week, that gun's in a holster on their body for 40 hours. If they're working 60 hours and overtime and whatever, and they've got to do special details, and they've got to go work at the school, and then the vice president's in town, so we got to close the roads, and they put in a 100-hour week, that gun is in a holster on their body 100 hours a week. And they go to bed, they get home, they take the gun off and in a holster, and they get up and they put it back on, it's in a holster. So the average working security forces person, unless you're a civilian who literally carries every day like I do, all day, every day, my gun comes off when I'm in bed. The average security forces guy has a gun in a holster in a week, probably has more holster time with a gun in a holster than the average civilian who has a gun and hadn't had a problem with it does in 5 years. Like, for real. Unless you're like one of these dudes that like carries all the time, which we encourage, like I do, like we're gun people. Like,
I do.
surprise, we carry guns all the time. Like I can't remember, I was somewhere, I had a meeting, so somebody somewhere a couple days ago, and I was someplace where you're not supposed to have a gun, and like who we are and what we're doing, whatever comes up, and I'm looking across this person, and I said, dude, I got a gun on me right now. And it was just like, well, he's like, well, I'm a conservative. I'm like, well, it doesn't fucking matter if you're conservative or not. That's like, I saw the sign out there, and then I said, you can suck my dick, because unless you've got Airman Braden Lovin literally walking behind me covering my six with his gun, then that's not security.
Yeah.
So, but my point is, to get back on subject here, a lot of people just because you own a SIG doesn't mean you know what you're talking about. And just because you don't like the SIG doesn't mean you know what you're talking about either. The reality is most civilians don't carry, like, the best way to put it, if you're not carrying a gun for a paycheck, you probably don't carry a gun nearly as much as you think you do. And it's no surprise that starting to come out, the problems with these guns are coming from bumps and jolts and vibrations, and that's what's happened here. It seems another one of these, this gun is dropping the striker, supposedly, well, it's not supposedly, it obviously dropped the striker, but, dropped a striker in the holster. And, I've seen some stuff on the internet that I don't like, because again, what's happened is, this, and then I'll let you talk. I feel like I'm just filibustering here, but it's like, again, I'm not saying, because, people default to, well, Braden Lovin, they didn't even know this guy's name. They just call him a sergeant or whatever. The desk sergeant. They don't, they're just like, well, he fucked up, or something got in the holster, or he's a moron. And then it was, well, how did he have a gun pointed towards himself? You should never point a gun at yourself, even in a holster. And again, I can tell we're talking about somebody who's talking has not carried a gun for a paycheck. And it means if you carry a gun for a paycheck, or you carry a gun all the time, like, because you have to, you don't understand how administering guns happens. Like, for example, like this idea of like, even in this article from Channel 14 News Life, I guess out of Greenville, they're saying that he fucked up because even the gun was in a holster, he had it pointed at himself. Well, number one, we don't know what you said. The person who was killed may not have been the person that was holding that was their gun. It may have been someone else, in the room or in the vicinity of this gun. But this has also happened. I have been in very crowded places where I've had to de-gun. Like I've come through there's some places I go through where they're like, you got to take your shit off, and like you go to like a nurse's. It looks like a nursing station, and you put your shit in a locker and whatever, and all. I mean, all these crazy places. But if I was in a crowded room and for some reason I had to they were like, take your gun off, and I'm like, I take it off, and I have a choice, and it's loaded. Leave it. Don't unload it. Don't fuck with it. Leave it in a holster. Lift it off with the holster, because that's the proper way. Typically, if you can, to de-gun. Don't take the gun out of the holster. Take the whole system off. The Safariland QLS system is simple because you can just clip it and it comes off the gun belt. It's real simple. So this guy, but if I was if it's like, hey, sit at the desk, take your shit off, because maybe I got to take it off because the next guy's got to put it on. Now, let's say there's 10 people around. Okay. And I've got this loaded gun in a holster, set it on the desk, and I have a choice. Let's say you're the sergeant at the desk. It's rude to point it at you. It's rude to point it at the guy next to the table, to the desk. It's rude to point him at whatever. If there's nowhere to point the gun or set it down, the polite thing to do, people are going to flip out when I say this, is to point it at yourself. And people are like, that's bullshit. Fuck you. You're lying. Fuck you, internet, and I can prove it to you right now. We're out on a goddamn range, and whether you have a hot gun, whether it's in a holster or not in a holster, and I go, hand me that gun. Do you hand that gun to me with the fucking barrel pointed at me? Or let's say you hand me an unloaded gun. Do you hand that gun to me with that barrel pointed at me? Or do you hand the gun butt first? It was like, why keep it pointed at the ground? Well, what if it's a situation you can't point it at the ground? Or it doesn't point at the ground? At the end of the day, you don't point guns at other people. You try not to point guns at yourself, but it's real bad to point guns at other people. And, it's just everybody, because these SIG dorks, this has gotten to be so dishonorable and so out of control that these people that don't carry guns, don't administer guns, will do anything to twist themselves into a pretzel to slander everybody else just so they can keep carrying the gun that they want to carry. Nobody cares. Nobody cares. Like, people banning the guns. The Air Force says, we're going to get rid of this gun. Let's just say they do that. You still carry your fucking SIG or your M17. It's not my problem. Not my circus, not my monkeys. But it's like everybody, their ego is so tied into whatever gun they carry. It's like it's like all we're doing here. Half these assholes on the internet bitching about these fucking SIGs, whether they're bitching for them or they're bitching against them. All you guys look to me, you're no different than these fucking football teams. You just some drunk fuck in the stands. You got a red jersey on, and the dude over here has an orange jersey, and you two want to shit on each other because you have different colored jerseys. And it's like, none of this is real. It's like, just stick with the facts. Like, it's just a fucking gun. If you really needed to carry a gun, like you really needed one, not like it's your rights or you choose to or whatever, but it's like, you can't, like, as soon as you walk out the store, you're going to get into a gunfight. Or you can't get work and get paid unless you have a gun. You don't give me a fucking Glock. I don't give a fuck. Like, none of this, like, people, but it's Joe Montana versus whatever that guy was from the quarterback from Chicago back in the day, or the Tom Brady versus,
Who's the
whoever's the,
GOAT?
yeah, who's the GOAT. And it's like, like nobody cares. Like people that actually play football, they don't give a fuck. They're busy trying to learn a playbook and make money and get their contract signed and get their bag. Like they don't care what you think the goat is. Like some guy, the people that play football, like actually play football right now today, right now are reading playbooks and got their training right now play football. They don't give a fuck about Tom Brady because they're not Tom Brady. You care about Tom Brady because you don't actually play football.
Yep.
But you care about these fucking guns, but you don't actually fucking use guns. And so anyway, it's the whole thing just turned
I
into.
get on. I'm on several of the SIG fanboy Facebook pages, and grudgingly, the worm is starting to turn a little bit on this issue. As little as 6 months ago, if you put up a story about an uncommanded discharge, you would be jumped on by 80% of the people on that page within a half hour. And the excuses range from possibly to, okay, that's just fucking asinine. And some of the ones that really bug me, well, these are just happening to cops. They're not happening to civilians. And we all know that cops are some of the least trained, most gun improficient people in the world. Maybe in 1970 that was the case. And there are cops that probably have no business carrying a gun, but overall, the level of training for law enforcement officers in firearms is far past what these civilians on these fucking Facebook pages are spouting off, first off.
The average civilian cannot pass their own state police pistol qualification.
Oh, exactly. But yet they're going to talk about the lack of proficiency and negligence, and again, there are cops who don't put the time and effort into their shooting skills. I've complained about it on a different type of deal when it comes to just having knowledge of your equipment. I've used the analogy: you pull a snap-on wrench out of a toolbox, hand it to a mechanic. That motherfucker will put you to sleep telling you about all the attributes and drawbacks of that snap-on wrench. You take a lot of cops, especially city cops who didn't grow up maybe in the shooting hunting world. You ask them what they're carrying. Oh, a Glock, a 9mm Glock. Well, which model? Department issue. Well, what ammo do you guys carry? Oh, department issue, hollow points. And that's all they can do. But the worm has turned on that. Cops are a lot more proficient, a lot more gun knowledgeable than they were, say, even when I first hit the street. So that dog doesn't hunt. Number two, it's the holster. Okay, if it's the holster, that ALS system's been in service for, 15, 20 years now? If it was the holster...
God, almost 20, I would think.
If it's... Well, I've got one for a 4506, so that goes clear back to 98. It would have been in service for, roughly.
Mm-hmm.
But if it was the holster, then striker-fired weapons, they control the law enforcement market. So why aren't we hearing about uncommanded discharges with the M&P? Why aren't we hearing about uncommanded discharges with the Glock? We're not. It's one particular model of one particular brand that keeps coming up over and over again. It's not the holster. Can somebody stick their finger, or can debris get caught in a holster actuated trigger? Yeah, it could. Is there probably a better design out there? Yes. And I think it's going to revolve around making weapons lights smaller. But that's not the cause of these SIGs going pop in every case.
The 2-battery weapon light stuff has been pointed out, and they're already making changes. And
yeah.
But that's not what's happening here.
Exactly. Well, I think it was on our page, one of the guys pointed out, well, I heard there was dirt in the holsters. Okay, these are combat holsters. Whether you're working the streets and you're going to roll around in North Pittsburgh with a perp on ground glass and gravel and asphalt, or whether you're in the mountains in Afghanistan, or whether you're training in the deserts of Arizona. This holster's has been issued for years, it's been in service, and again, we're not hearing about debris causing uncommanded discharges with Glocks and Smith & Wesson. So if that holster is not capable of having a little bit of dirt or snow or grime or blood in it without a gun going off, then the entire system is suspect, but we're not seeing that. We're still just seeing it with one particular platform. And then we get to the, well, I've had one and I've probably put 1,000 rounds through mine and it's never went off without pulling the trigger. Okay, I put 100,000 miles on a Ford Pinto in high school and it never blew up, but Ford said there wasn't a problem for years and then eventually had to pay out a couple gazillion dollars because of it. And then my last rant on this is everybody wants to point at the Glocks and Glock leg back in the day. And this right here is the epitome of somebody not knowing what the fuck they're talking about. Because Glocks were not going off with uncommanded discharges in a holster. I know I was there when the Glocks first hit the streets and people were bringing Glocks to the academy and the armorer was going, what the fuck is this? And what was happening was the duty holster, probably 98% of the duty weapons back in the day were just your basic hip ride thumb brake holsters. That strap that connects to the thumb brake could get in the trigger guard if you didn't protect the trigger guard upon holstering.
Well, a lot of as a side note, like you remember this, like we remember obviously revolvers. I remember when revolvers every cop carried a revolver. And a lot of those revolvers, those holsters, that trigger guard, I mean, there was a lot. I mean, like some of those holster designs, that shit was kind of almost, that was like 30-40% open.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for not duty use, probably my favorite just EDC holster for revolvers is still the Bianchi 5BHL, and it's a completely open trigger guard.
Let me write. I'll put a picture of that up on the
but what was happening
on the comments
was trigger discipline, believe it or not, in the late 80s was kind of a newly formed thing. It wasn't harped upon as much as it is now. It was a new tool in the training toolbox. Mm-hmm. So back in the day, we were taught to ride the frame to keep our finger off of the trigger unless we had a sight picture. What was happening was guys were taking these Glocks that had no type of safety or no type of traditional double action trigger pull, like say my beloved Smiths, and they would try and jam these back in the holster in a hurry, just like they've been doing all their shooting careers. But that strap to the thumb brake would get in the trigger guard, hit that center safety on the trigger of a Glock, and by them just ramming it into the holster would then depress the trigger with the holster, firing a shot off, hopefully into the ground, but unfortunately into a lot of people's legs. That's Glock leg. That's not just walking across the office and the gun goes boom in a holster without being touched. Glock leg was 99% of being jammed in the holster and the thumb brake catching it, or people on the draw stroke. And this has happened with the SIG. I have seen some of the uncommanded discharges that were later proven to be negligent discharges on the draw stroke, not keeping your finger off the trigger during the draw stroke.
Well, yeah, that's real common.
But it wasn't from just walking around in the office and the Glock goes boom.
But to be fair, because this needs to be said, not every SIG that has gone off. I mean, statistically, this has to be true. Not every SIG that has gone off has been because of an uncommanded discharge. There have to have been times where someone's put their finger on the trigger, they pulled the trigger, then they tried to blame the gun. Because that happened a lot with the Glock, and they proved it wasn't happening. But the difference was, when this was happening with the Glock, it was happening when people either had the gun in their hand or they were administering the gun into or out of the holster. And that's when this was happening. These guns just weren't going off in the holsters.
Yeah. And then to circle back a little bit, so all of these assholes saying, that it was a Glock thing too, Well, then let's just even say it was happening as an uncommanded discharge with a Glock. Obviously, Glock has fixed it because Glock leg hasn't been an issue for
Since going postal.
decades.
Yeah. Remember going postal? People don't
Yeah.
remember, like, there was a time when most of the mass shootings in this country were conducted by people that worked at the post office.
Mm-hmm.
There's people today that have never heard that.
Yeah, that was the old saying was, don't go postal.
Yeah.
So
people today would not even possibly associate a mass shooting with a postman today.
No.
They're like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, right. But, everybody's got all of these excuses. And I get a little hot under the collar because it's just people that don't know what the fuck they're talking about. And a lot of it just defies logic. It's like, dude, there's videos. There's no set of car keys that got in the holster that set that gun off. Okay. There gets to be a certain point where, you take this same person that's calling me a SIG hater and you delve off into politics. And let's say we want to talk about Joe Biden's cognitive ability. And he'll be the first one to poke up and say, now, MSNBC, quit trying to tell me that I'm not seeing what I'm seeing. Okay, now let's put this video of this 320 popping in a holster, and then you say the same thing.
That's a good point. That's a real good point, actually.
I mean, that's the height of hypocrisy right there.
That you literally have just described probably every comment section and Reddit thread on this gun. And it's just holy. That's a really good. It's a really
and the 5%
good
that doesn't catch is the guy who would get caught balls deep in his wife's hot sister, look at her, and use the excuse, "It's not what you see. It's not what you think, dear."
Yeah, I fell in.
Yeah.
So okay, all right.
I fell dick first into your sister, but it's not my fault.
So let's move the conversation along because there's a couple of things I want to still cover with this because
I got on my soapbox there.
Well, no, because I did it too, and we have to because I guess everybody now has to virtue signal on the 320, which is another thing I'll bring up in a minute. But it's like, okay, so here's something, because you've said this now 3 or 4 times, and I don't disagree because everybody's coming out and banning these guns, and you said the worm has turned. Why is this any different? And hold on, make this point. Because everybody's like, because now somebody's died and they're in the Air Force. But here's the thing. The pro-SIG people have so muddied the waters on this for so long. They've been so successful. They don't even realize. Now, I'm going to say this because they're going to get a letter. SIG will dispute this, and I can't remember the exact disposition of all the cases. If some of them were settled, or they were, we'll settle them without prejudice, or no admitting a fault or whatever. But it is arguable that there have been 2 other cases where people have been killed by SIG P320s. This is not the first one. This is, in my opinion, the standard of the court may not be this, but in my opinion, this is easily the 3rd one, and there's probably more that I don't know about. Why is this different now? What's happened?
Well, I would venture to say it's simply because this is a military service member, and the memo came from Strike Force Command. So it's kind of hard to say that it didn't happen. You can argue about why it happened, but you can't deny that
you're telling me
killed somebody.
So let me just make this point. Just make a point to people. The people in the comment section, or the SIG people, or the gun people, or whatever. So let me just get this straight. We have police officers. In many cases, they're actually gun guys. We don't know if Airman Braden Lovan, what his level. He's 21 years old. He's in the Air Force, and he's security forces. He may be a guy that let's assume it was his gun. Let's assuming it was his gun to carry. Maybe it wasn't, but let's just assume it was, because he will stand in for whomever the airman is. Okay. he's security forces guy. Maybe he's a gun guy. Maybe he's not. Maybe he's like masterclass shooter in whatever competitions and does this and does that. Or maybe the gun is just one of 10 things he has to try to master every shift to get through his shift. The radios and the this and the paperwork and the laws and the whatever and the all the things they have to do. Okay? But here's the thing. That young airman is carrying the same gun in the same holster as guaranteed some of these police officers are SWAT guys. And like, well, they're not really SWAT guys. They suck, they're civilian. Guarantee you they're probably better than your average 21-year-old Air Force guy. Carrying the same gun in the same holster. The guy gets out of a police car and the gun goes off. But somehow, on film, this gun goes off at Effie Warren and kills somebody. No one's seen any film footage. And for now it's changed. Is this because we don't dare question the integrity of an airman? Or is that a bridge too far for the SIG subreddit? Like, why is this a thing?
You there?
Like, maybe you don't have an answer, because I don't know if I have the answer, because I don't understand necessarily. I can't tell you why people do certain things. I can just maybe tell you what they will do. And so, I thought that was a thing. And now what we're seeing is, and I started noticing this to me just myself here. It seems like everybody's coming out and announcing that they're banning the 320s, right? Like everybody, like all these instructors, all these trainers, all these schools, all these people, they're like, no 320s, no M17s, no M18s, no 320s, no 17s, no 17s, no 18s.
I just got booted out, so I just got reconnected. So the last thing I heard was you asking if it was because we can't question the integrity of an airman.
Okay, well, so if we can't question the integrity of an airman, so is it because, well, so here's the point. I'm to the point here. So it's still recording, so we're fine.
Okay.
So, everybody's now coming out, and all these trainers and all these schools are coming out to ban these guns. They're like, no SIG P320s, no M17s, no M18s, none of this, none of that. Everybody's coming out and banning these guns from their stuff. Like the amount of gun sites come out and ban the gun. All these trainers, some facilities are banning the gun and saying, we are not allowing any M17, M18s, or any 320s. If you are someone who's scheduled to come through our training facility and you're like, it's a duty contract, or you're with a department and it's an issue gun, they're basically going to give you an exemption. Well, also part of that is probably because you're also training on that city's insurance and workman's comp, potentially on liability. But everybody's coming out and banning this gun, and the worm has turned, as you say. But what's really going to change? What's changed?
Well, I can tell you exactly what's changed, and you don't exactly have to be Nostradamus to figure this one out. But I mean, we've been talking about this for a year now, and the crux of it is eventually a school kid's going to get shot from a school resource officer from an uncommanded discharge. Another police officer's going to die in the line of duty from an uncommanded discharge. A soldier's going to get killed from an uncommanded discharge. And then eventually this is going to work its way up to somebody that has the horsepower to say, what the fuck? And the house of cards is going to fall. And I think that's where we're finally at. Global Strike Force Command isn't some little podunk command in West Waxahachie, Texas, that just deadlined 8 weapons. This is command-wide for them. This is, and we've talked about it, like you said, this has worked its way up to the Pentagon. This isn't being handled by the same guy that oversees the people cleaning the head and ordering the potatoes for the chow hall.
Well, okay, let's not oversell it. Okay, so all right, so we're going to where I suspect this is going to go. So you've gone there. I opened the door and you walked right through it. So here's the thing: the worm has turned. Things are changing. Everybody's banning this gun. All the instructors have come out. I'm not virtue signaling. We banned this gun last year when we heard that the Marine in Japan had an M18 go off in the holster, and Naval Criminal Investigative Service did a full investigation. I think the Marine was wounded and he was fully exonerated, and they recommended that there needed to be some kind of change made to this gun. And I was like, because I've kind of like not really paid that much attention to the 320, because it's like the only one that I really care about is going to be the military one, because that's going to be the one I interface with. But once I heard that the actual thumb safety version is having this problem, it's like, this gun is gone. And so that was the moment for me. But here's the thing: when John1911 banned this gun, people I know at West Point, I guarantee you they weren't like, holy shit, fucking Marky's on it now. What are we going to do? They don't give a fuck, or they're not in a position to give a fuck. If the gun community turns on this gun, and apparently you can't trade these guns in, I've heard rumors some gun stores won't sell them now. They won't take them in on trade. They won't sell them used. I don't even know why there's even any companies offering holsters for these guns at this point. If basically SIG's going to throw you under the bus and try to wipe you out. If there's an accident with their gun in your holster, it's automatically your holster's fault. I don't know how any small mom and pop holster shop could even risk that kind of exposure. But with all that being said, Air Force isn't going to drop this gun. What are they going to do? I mean, are you there to drop you?
Yeah, no, I'm
okay.
seeing
Air
where
Force,
you're going with this.
Yeah, the Air Force isn't going to drop this gun. Like, okay, so Global Strike Command has put a pause on this gun, and they're going to issue M-Force. Global Strike Command is Barksdale, 4-star general. They run, I assume they run the bombers. I know they run the missiles. That's old Curtis LeMay's command, Strategic Air Command, kind of. I mean, they can do what they want for a certain period of time, but at some point, they're going to need pistols. Global Strike, what are they going to do? How are they going to be able to? I mean, is a 4-star general, Global Strike Command, going to be able to procure Glocks on his own?
No, it's going to have to work up the chain of command.
Well, the only way I see, and this is the other door that you've now kind of cracked open. I've seen people on the internet, because they don't know what they're talking about, and they're like, we should reopen the MHS program. We should retest. We should do this. We should do that. And I'm literally like, that is the last fucking thing that the DoD and the Air Force need. Because before the MHS program, there was the JSP, Joint Service Pistol Program. And I remember that one too. And that was a clusterfuck. They shut that program down because they couldn't get anybody to agree on anything. And I remember distinctly talking to a colonel, an active duty colonel, and he was like, everybody was telling us, everyone's bitching about 9mm. I mean, he's like, everybody's bitching about 9mm, and it's like basically browbeating the Army. We need a 45, this pissant fucking caliber, this Euro weenie NATO bullshit. The rumors about we did it because some kind of deal so we could get Aviano Air Base, all this shit to make that, it's just all this crap. So the Army puts together this proposal for the Joint Service Pistol Program. And they're like, it's got to be this, it's got to be that, it's got to be this, it's got to be that, it's got to be in 45 ACP. That is why there's a gun that H&K made called, what's the one? There's a little HK45C. HK45, that was created as a tender for the Joint Service Pistol Program with the Army.
Mm-hmm.
And they're putting all this, and everybody's giving their input and doing all this. And so they talked to the marksmanship unit, talked whatever. And at one point, they literally talked. They talked to Delta. Delta is, this is before, this is well before the MHS program. They talked to Delta, and the people that ran the Joint Service Pistol Program, they got feedback from Delta, and it was, we think it should be a Glock, and we think it should be 40. Because at the time, Delta was running 40s. And literally, this put this program into a tailspin. They literally threw up their hands and said, fuck this. We're shutting this down. Let the fucking Air Force decide this fucking gun because we're a rifle service anyway. Fuck this. Fuck you. Fuck all of it. That's what happened to the Joint Service Pistol Program. That is not in the official record. That is not that has been common knowledge when Army 20 some years ago. That this was such a negative turd fucker disaster that they knew they weren't going to be able to get out of this. So they shut it down. MHS program, modular handgun system, here's where we are now. Okay. They wanted a gun that could fit people. They wanted a gun with external safety. They wanted all this stuff. Literally, SIG gave them a gun that would do all the stuff, and that gun is fucking killing people and is a shit show and a half. Like, literally, the only gun in the MHS program on paper that qualifies to be awarded the MHS contract is the M17, the M18. And I'm saying that in the aftermath of this disaster with this gun. So I'm going to quote Mark Milley, everybody in MAGA world's favorite general. Not. Mark Milley did have a moment of clarity when he was chairman. And someone asked him about this program. He was testifying before Congress. And he basically, and I'm paraphrasing, I have to find a quote, but he basically said, this is nonsense. All this stuff, we're spending 14, 15, 16, 17 million dollars. Try to figure out what's the best, whatever, pistol. And he goes, I can literally take 14, 15 million dollars and I can go to Cabela's and I can buy, I don't know if he said Glock or he said whatever, but he said, I can get us a service pistol right now, and at $14 million, I can get us a discount. He basically was shitting on this program. Now, mind you, this is the same guy. Everyone's like, oh, Milley, yeah, fucking great. First, like, Milley sucks, Trump and China. Now they're like, Milley's great, fucking, he should have fucking whatever the program. Milley is still the same guy that basically is responsible for the M7, or what do they call that fucking rifle? The rifle now that's too heavy and has all the crazy recoil that the SIG makes. Is that the M7 now? Yeah, the Sphere, the 27, the 6.8, whatever, 277 Fury, 6.8, whatever, 6.8 by 51. Because I can literally show you testimony of him, because I watched it in Congress, telling members of Congress that this gun has the energy or power of like a tank gun. Like, this thing can reach farther and blah, blah, blah. And he is selling this gun like he loves this program. He hates the MHS program, the pistol program, but he loves that M7 program. And so my point is, sometimes you got to be Lincoln. And when I say Lincoln, I mean President Lincoln. Okay? Sometimes you have to step into the middle of all this bullshit. You have to look General Meade in the face and say, shut up, you're fired, give me the fucking drunk guy. Okay? Like, at this point, the only way out of this for the military is either for Hegseth or Trump to get wind of this and basically have a shit attack and say, it's Glock, suck my dick.
Yep.
Single source, sole source, no bidding, fuck you, get it done, let's move on. Because it's like, well, what about the price and a competition or whatever? They've spent millions of dollars on this M17, M18 program. That's a fucking, it's not a disaster. It's a clown show. And people, there's people in our comments section that act like they know what they're talking about. And they're so certain either for or against this gun. But they're like, let's have the Army decide it again. Let's open up the MHS contract again. Let's do another trial. Let's do another. Fuck you. This is crazy.
And 10 years down the road, even if we reopen it, 10 years down the road, we're still not going to have a fucking replacement.
No, and guess what will happen? You'll still be running this goddamn gun for 10 years. In the meantime,
yep.
The only way out of this is politics. This is not a gun.
See, now you're going through a door I was going to hold open.
Go ahead.
Well,
walk me through it.
It's going to become politics because Hegseth, Trump, they stand on the mountain of we're all about the patriot, warrior, soldier, and taking care of them. You're not going to be able to have to hand out too many folded flags over this fucking gun, and it's going to come back and politically bite them. Kind of for the same reason, that we've discussed about how if a school kid gets, if PTA gets hold of a case where a school kid was accidentally shot with one that was an uncommanded discharge, the politics of it will take over the economics and the logistics of it. How many folded flags is it going to take before somebody high enough up that has fuck you power has to say, we can't have this anymore. I'm making a command decision. This is what we're doing. You're going to chew it up, swallow it, and at least say you like it, because I can't stand having to defend another folded flag.
My response to you is the truth. And it's going to offend everybody that's listening to this podcast. They're not going to like it because they don't want to hear the truth. But this is the truth. Everybody's all keyed up right now. The worm is turned. Some 4-star general down in Barksdale was like, fuck, if this gets to become a big drama and I don't handle it right, maybe I won't get to become chairman of the Joint Chiefs.
Yep.
But what'll happen is once this goes back into the Pentagon, into the bureaucracy, and you get the bureaucrats and the lawyers, I'm going to sit around you and your Secretary of Defense Karken, and I'm going to tell you, Mr. Secretary, the American people don't want to hear this. How many American airmen have been killed in F-16 crashes? How many American airmen have been killed in F-35 crashes? How many American soldiers have been killed, and how many Marines have been killed in the MV-22 Osprey crashes? How many sailors have died trying to get the nuclear Navy submarine program running, Mr. Secretary? The reality is these people write a blank check for their country, and unfortunately, some of them, it gets cashed. And this will go back into being a bureaucratic bullshit thing, and it'll be, we got to have a process. We got to do trials. We got to make sure there isn't any malfeasance. We have to make sure there isn't any favoritism, because what they'll do is they'll go back, they'll find some reason to tell us why the MHS program was flawed, and we're going to do it right this time. Like, I swear to you, this time it won't get fucked up, and here's the excuse last time, and let's let me do it again. The only way out of this is Lincoln and McClellan. Mm-hmm. I'm hoping, the only hope against hope at this point is because Secretary of Defense Hegseth is a field-grade officer who seems to not be unfamiliar with weapons at the very least. I don't know if he's really a gun guy or not. I know that Tulsi Gabbard actually is she shoots like she owns staccato pistols. She shoots
Mhm.
1911. It's like, I mean, she shoots drills and shit. I would assume Hexeth has. But I don't know. The only hope would be, because the reality is the normal person who would be Secretary of Defense wouldn't stick their dick in this problem. Like the 4-star general, was it Carter? What the black guy, the last one, Secretary of Defense.
Oh, Austin.
Austin. His first name or his last name? I'm thinking
Last name.
Austin Bay. Lloyd Austin. Yeah,
Lloyd
I'm thinking
Austin.
Austin. I'm thinking of a different colonel. Lloyd Austin, like, he's a 4-star general. I mean, he's not the kind of guy that would like swan dive in the middle of this problem and fix it. SecDef before him wouldn't fix it. Other people wouldn't fix it. The only hope at this point is some politician, somebody who doesn't want to deal with this, who actually doesn't want to deal with these flags anymore, these folded flags, and be like, "This is stupid, you fucks." I mean, like, the Pentagon isn't always right, and many times the Pentagon's wrong. And I'm not anti-military and anti-Pentagon. I'm very pro both. But here's a clue in life that seems unrelated, but I promise you it's related. It's absolutely related. How come the Navy doesn't have any stealth aircraft?
Well,
They
not
just now
not
got
not being a
they just now got the F-35. They just now got the F-35.
yeah.
They just started getting that program. Like, they were literally running like first deployments, real deployments last year. And the Air Force has that F-117s, F-22s, B-2s. Why is that? Because the Navy can't run an acquisition program. The Navy can't run a shipbuilding program anymore.
No.
The Navy can't fucking do it. The Navy couldn't run the stealth program. Secretary of Defense Cheney had to come in and fucking fire a 4-star general, fire all these people, shut all this down. None of this works. This is retarded. Just fucking forget about it. And took it away from them. Okay? Apparently the Army cannot run a fucking program for pistols. That's fine. You know what? Let the FBI fucking run it. It's fucking pistols. You're a rifle service anyway. Who gives a fuck? And all the people and here's another one. Here's another sweetheart one. People that are like, why did we get rid of the M9? The M9 was perfect. No, the M9 wasn't perfect. The problem with the M9 is, and here's the real one, this is the real answer here. Most people that carry handguns in the military are not frontline troops. They're not Shrek. They're not, insert your favorite Navy SEAL or Delta Force guy or Bro Vet or whomever. They drive trucks. They work as gate guards. They're the senior NCO
They're
of the
postal
dining
clerks wearing a gun
Yeah,
because they caught the
yeah,
balls
they're
before watch.
They're this whatever person at the dining facility. Like, and the reality is, you have a lot of people that are military that are not giant ass people. They're normal people. And the M9 with that long ass trigger reach and that slide mounted safety, a lot of these people had a hard time qualifying with these M9s because they couldn't physically hold the gun right to shoot it. I know this because I trained them.
Yep.
And we would deal with this every year. This gun didn't fit. And most of the time, it would be girls. Even if you had a short guy, he'd tend to have bigger hands. And some of the girls could hold the guns, but you'd have a tall girl, like she'd be like, for a girl, like maybe 5'9", 5'8", 5'9". And you watch some of these girls, they're barely hanging on to these guns, reaching out that double action trigger pull. Because the gun just didn't fit them. And so that's why they wanted a new fucking gun. It didn't fit the people that need the gun. Because, Sergeant Rock doesn't need a fucking pistol. You know who needs a pistol? The person in the postal fucking room needs a pistol.
Yep.
The person who runs artillery, who's got two hands full trying to load a piece of artillery because he can't fucking have a long ass rifle. Or a person, getting out of a vehicle, it's like the people that use pistols are the same people that you don't respect because they're cops in the military. They're not soldiers. And it's like, you assholes want to run these fucking pistol programs like they're first line guns, make all this shit impossible. You can't get it off the ground, and you're going to end up with nothing. Like the Navy can't get fucking stealth aircraft, it can't get a fucking cruiser built, can't get fucking submarines. They took them forever to get started to make submarines again, and the Navy's already fucking up the Constellation class frigates because they can't make up their mind and stick with something and without making changes. And you know what you need to do? Again, Lincoln needs to come in and tell McClellan, here's what you're going to do. Buy a Glock and shut the fuck up. And you know what? Glock isn't going to fit everybody. It's not. The Glock has not a dissimilar problem as the M9, but it's better than the M9, and it sure hell was a lot better than the fucking 320.
Well, here's just something to reinforce your point on say the M9 or basically any TDA semi-auto. So back in the day when dinosaurs roamed the earth and I was first hitting the streets right out of the Navy, TDAs were traditional double action semi-autos, had 85-90% of the law enforcement market share. The Beretta was kind of the king dog at the time, and Smith & Wesson was probably neck and neck with them. Everybody knew about the Beretta because of TV shows like Cops. They originally started in California, but that's kind of off in the weeds there. But what a lot of people don't know, because they don't do it anymore, one of the standard pre-employment physical ability tests for almost every law enforcement agency during that time frame was a trigger pull test. They either used a unloaded weapon, or they actually had a little device that simulated a double action trigger pull that you had to pull with your right and your left hand so many repetitions in so many seconds.
That's a carryover from the service revolver days.
Exactly. And it is amazing how many people, they could make the run, they could do the push-ups, they could do the pull-ups. They couldn't pull that trigger the 50 times in 60 seconds and were disqualified. Segue into about 1987, 88, somewhere in around there, when the Glocks first started hitting the law enforcement market. That was one of the big selling points of Glock, was you didn't have that long TDA trigger pull.
Did we lose
now the lion's share of the law enforcement military market is striker-fired weapons, so we've gotten completely away from that trigger pull physical part of it, which gets right back to the problem with trying to go back to the M9, is we haven't tested people to see if they can even physically manipulate the weapon. So we just can't say omnis omnis hocus pocus. We'll just dust off all the M9s out of inventory and give them to everybody with a new holster, because you're going to have a huge amount of people in the rear that cannot physically manipulate that weapon.
Well, but it's not a reason. I mean, some is, good is better than perfect. And, I would say that in the argument, the logical response to that is going to be, well, at least the gun's not shooting people. I'm not advocating that they go back to the M9 in the slightest.
No, but
I think
the most often mentioned fix to the whole 320 issue is, well, we'll just dust off the M9s. There was nothing wrong with it. Obviously, well, you don't know about the M9 because half the people out there can't shoot them.
Well, the M9s are also shot out too. Again, I would train these guys, I would get them every year, and they'd show up with these M9s. They were Army issue. These are Army people, and they would show up with fully with three selector M4s as well. But these M9s, I mean, like the locking block should break in them, which is not. I mean, that happens. It's just you got to order new guns. You can't run them forever.
They're just clapped out high mileage guns.
Yeah, and I mean, I think the answer is going to end up being Glock. Maybe Glock can come up with, they do their slim frame stuff. You can, there's aftermarket, people hog them out in the back. They, make those grip reductions. Glock could easily do something. If they would, I don't know about, I wouldn't even try to even get all this fancy bullshit with a thumb safety at this point. I'd be like, just fucking put it in a fucking holster. Like all these other militaries around the world run Glocks at this point.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the Brits run it. I think the Canadians run it. The French run it. They run the 17. Well, you know what? And here's the thing. Again, because I was kind of bitching about military procurement, and now that I got people's attention, we'll end with this because we're going. You know, there's people that probably want to hear this, but there's probably people that don't. But let's talk about the military procurement system a little bit and some stories. And I've told some of these stories before, but they're worth telling again now that you're kind of like, oh my God, I had no idea how fucked up it is. It can be really fucked up in the military. So a couple things, and I'm going to start with, there's a fighter airplane example, and I'm going to use it for the Glock example. You're going to find this interesting. If you're somebody that likes airplanes, and again, I was bitching
Don't
about the
trash
Navy.
my F-14.
I'm not. No. The F-14. No. Well, no. Okay. Well,
Them fighting words.
I can go back to the F-111, do all fucking airplane. The F-111 was supposed to do all this shit for everybody. It was going to be ground attack for the Air Force, and it was going to be carrier borne for the Navy, and it's going to have variable wings, and it just the Air Force kind of made it work. I mean, they had long range, you could do stuff. The Navy, it never got off the ground. The Navy ended up shit that program and then turn that into the F-14 program. That's where the variable sweep wing shit comes from for the F-14.
Yep.
But the original F-14, see, the people today think that the F-14 is like the greatest fucking fighter plane that ever existed. They're like, this is great because the movies and whatever, all right? The F-14, when it first came out, was a fucking disaster because it was basically a cobbled together program off the bones of the failed F-111 for the Navy. And the original F-14, the engines were way underpowered. They crashed. The thing didn't perform. It wasn't until the very end, the last parts of the service life of that program, when they created the F-14D models, when they put the big GE engines in them, cough, cough, doc, they put the big, powerful GE engines in them that they got this thrust to weight ratio that this thing could really do a bunch of shit. Like it could turn and burn and really do all kinds. It's a big airplane. It's like people don't realize how big the F-14 is huge. Like, because I talk about the F-111, but it's like the F-14. The F-14 is huge. Again, the original F-18. You look at the F-18, you put it on a flight line, you put it on deck, and you like, I know what an F-18 looks like. You don't have to be a military person. Like, that's an American F-18. And then you're like, let's put it next to, then there's this thing called the F-18 Super Hornet, which is really still the backbone of the naval aviation to this day.
Oh, absolutely.
They have not replaced all those F-18s because they couldn't run a fucking program to get to get shitty thing fucking working, okay? And you look at the F-18 Super Hornet. You look at it, and you're like, yeah, it's an F-18. Like there's the A version, AB version, then the CD. I think there was an E, Super Hornet E. And you look at it, then you take an F-18E Super Hornet and you park it next to an F-18AB. You're like, because you like it on paper, you see the outline, you look at it on the internet, the art, the graphics, whatever you want to look at. You're like, same fucking airplane. You put them together, and it looks like an S-10 pickup truck next to an F-250. I mean, it's like, this is not the same fucking airplane.
Yeah.
But they're both called the F-18. You want to know why they're both called the F-18? Because nobody had the balls to go to Congress and say, we need another airplane. The F-18 that we bought isn't really working out. And so instead of doing a whole new program and calling it the F-19 or whatever we're going to call it, we're going to call it the F-18 this and F-18 that. And that's how that program, that is such a different airplane. It's not the same plane.
Mm-hmm.
It's not the same plane. But the M14 and the M16 are not the same fucking gun. Like the F-18A and the F-18 Super Hornet are not the same plane. Like it's that much of a difference. There's no compatibility here. Okay, so now let's go to the handguns. Okay, so everyone knows that there's various units, and forget Delta Force. Okay, forget them for a minute. Okay, because they kind of do what they want because they're not technically on the table of equipment for an order of battle for the military. They're on the black side. They don't technically exist. Okay, they can do whatever the fuck they want, and they're their own encapsulated. They got their own air, their own logistics. They literally. They're their own self-contained.
They're self-sufficient.
They're self-sufficient, and they report basically to the Secretary of Defense. directly. So, okay, how did this happen? Let me was it the Marines that did this? Was it the SEALs? But basically what happened was there's a gun out there, and people talk about it now. Like, I even would see it in the comments talking about the SIG-P20. And I'm literally like, oh, I'm ready to blow my fucking stack, because people don't even realize how stupid this is. The Glock 19X is so stupid that it should infuriate you. You remember what a Glock 19X is?
Mm-hmm.
Tell me what a Glock 19X for the listener. I know there wasn't going to be a quiz today, or you would have studied. But do you know what a Glock 19X is? And if you don't know exactly, that's fine, but you can kind of tell me what it is.
It's how do I explain this? It's a 19. The frame is reconfigured just a little bit smaller, isn't it?
No.
And
the Glock 19X.
Isn't the X optics ready?
No. The Glock 19.
Okay, then I don't know.
The Glock 19X, you'll see them. They're FDE in color because they made them for the military. And it was like a small run. And it's a 19 slide, so it's got a short slide, and it's got a Glock 17 service pistol size grip.
Oh, so it's a G45.
The G45 didn't exist.
No, but that's what it turned into.
And what they did is they took the Glock 19 slide and then the Glock 17 frame, and they put a magwell on it, and it's got a magwell, and you can put these big Glock 17 magazines in it. But it's not a Glock 17 frame. It's not a Glock 17, but you put Glock 17 mags in it, and it comes with a couple +2s or +4s or whatever, and you can make this bigger gun. And it's like, okay, but this is a Glock 7, or this is a Glock 19. The Glock 19 is a compact gun in the Glock catalog. It is considered a compact. A subcompact is a 26-27.
Mm-hmm.
The Glock 19 is a compact. Okay, so I think it was the Marine Corps did this. The Marine Corps decided they couldn't handle the M45 Colt 1911 that the Marine Corps ordered was not holding up. It had double encapsulated recoil spring. It's these tan guns. The Marine Special Forces guys, they were running, and the recon guys were running, and the frames were cracking. The finish was coming off. It was finished, like, whatever, I don't care. But the frames are cracking. They were breaking. They were having problems, and they don't hold a lot of ammo, and they probably weren't quite as reliable as they could be. And the younger guys, as organizations, people age out and people come in, the younger guys, they were kind of Glock people anyway. And they were like, we want Glocks. I mean, I'm oversimplifying this, but they kind of figured out they wanted Glocks. And it's like, well, what kind of Glock do you want? I mean, we want a Glock 17. Oh, a Glock 17 is a service pistol. You can't get a Glock 17 because we already have a service pistol. We're phasing out the M45. The service pistol is, you either can draw an M9 or you can draw an M17, M18. That's a service pistol. Like, it's a full-size pistol. I mean, the M18 is technically a whatever compact, but it's a service pistol. Like, it's service pistol. You can't get authorization to spend more money on shit you've already got, just like the F-18. Okay. So what they did is, it's like, well, we need a smaller pistol. We need a compact pistol. We don't have one of those in a table of equipment, like for like low profile missions and whatever. And we don't have that. No, we don't have that. So, okay, well, Glock's got a Glock 19. It's a compact pistol. What's a compact pistol? So we can justify it with the bean counters. We can run it through the Pentagon. We can get the check. It'll probably go through, Marine Corps Systems Command. and they'll go ahead and, we'll be able to fund this and get it through. It's a need. We've identified it. There's no alternatives in the system. And then the cherry on top, it was called the M007. Okay? Like literally 007 James Bond. That's what they call this. That's the model number in the NSN system. The Glock Glock 19. And, and they got it through. And then they're like, but it'd be nice if we could have like a magwell on it. Maybe we could put like bigger, to hold more bullets. It's still compact though. So let's see if we can make it. It's a Glock 19. It's a compact. You look at the Glock catalog, it's a compact pistol.
Mm-hmm.
But it's got a bigger frame and it holds the same bullets or more bullets as the service pistol. But it's a compact pistol. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. It's a compact pistol. It's not a service pistol. It's a compact pistol. It's a carry pistol. It's a whatever pistol. So they got that through, and like that's a clue that they didn't want any part of the M17 M18. This is a little predates some of it, but this is the kind of horse shit that goes on. And so then the Glock 9. So then they turn that request into the Glock 19X. That's what they turned it into. This fake gun that isn't a compact pistol is a full-size service pistol. But for military procurement purposes, it's a compact pistol. Exists is the Glock 19X with this giant fucking magazine with it and a Glock 17 side. This is the same military that runs the SIG P320 program. So don't tell me that you can't just get Glocks, that they're not in the system, or you can't justify this. The Navy can't run a shipbuilding program and the Army can't run a pistol fucking program. Somebody's got to come in and save these people and be like, y'all bitch are getting Glocks. And you know what? Maybe you can get the 19X because it's in the system. Or maybe you'll get I don't know what Delta runs now. They're running some kind of Glock.
Well,
but I don't know if their equipment sits in the NSN system.
When I trained with a retired Delta Force guy a couple different times, that was always a topic that comes up on different weapons platforms. And as far as he would go was, we've got, you name it, it's in the armory. And it depends on mission parameters and operator preference. But like you said, like the Delta guys, they operate completely outside the system. They have a virtual museum of what's what for weaponry to choose from. So that's,
they've got,
like you said, that's not a fair comparison.
They run in their command. They run their own commercial off-the-shelf acquisition program.
Yeah,
they literally can buy shit just to fuck with it. Like that's not how the regular Army works. Like the Marines who got the 19X authorized, and maybe the SEALs might have been a part of it as well. Like that was because they were stuck dealing with the bureaucracy trying to jam this shit through to get it approved, because you can't spend money on shit you've already spent money on, because that looks like fraud. And then you also have to justify it it's harder to justify that to Congress. You get called up for Congress. Why are you spending money on guns? You've already got guns. This gun. Well, no, Senator, this is a different kind of gun. This gun meets a different need. Okay. It's not the same gun. No, it's not the same gun. Different gun. Different use. Promise. No problem. And it's a small run.
So they basically just put lipstick on a pig and gave it a different name and pushed it through.
It's terrible. I mean, it's just... And the worst part is, unless Hegseth somehow gets a hold of this gun's not going away. Like, the Pentagon doesn't care that, I don't know, the gun tube universe is like all of a sudden shitting on their guns. They don't care. I mean, it's like, I'm like,
well, from a civilian standpoint, as civilians, we often would say, how many bodies does it take? In the Pentagon, in the military, and this is going to be an unpopular opinion, but it's true, we're expendable. So there is a certain amount of
the cost of doing business.
Yeah, there's just a certain percentage built in. We're going to lose people from training, from shitty equipment, from bad tactics, from shitty leaders, and it's just how it is. So it's at some point and this kind of circles back to my theory of and yours too. It's going to take politics. At some point, it's got to become too stinky and outside the realm of what's considered politically acceptable losses that we can't just explain away and say that's the cost of doing business. Nobody really knows what that number is, and nobody probably will until it gets real stinky.
Yeah, because there are accidents. And I can't remember the specific details of this. We almost reported on it, but it got kind of buried at the time, and it wasn't, then it kind of got left behind. It just wasn't, it seemed like a good time to bring it up. I want to think it was on the East Coast with Marines, but maybe I'm mistaken, and maybe it was in the UK. Maybe it was in Australia. I think it was a Marine, and maybe I'm misremembering. But this happened maybe last year. There was an accident with a Marine security forces. Well, maybe it wasn't secure. There was an accident, and it may not have been the U.S. military, but it's one of these things you're like, how does that happen? But it actually happened. Either a Marine fell with his own bayonet, or he fell, or they fell with someone else with a bayonet. I don't know if it was on a rifle or kind of what was going on, but basically one of these people took a bayonet right through the head or into the head. Obviously, it was a fatality, and it was so crazy, just crazy accident. And it's like, what are we going to do? We're going to take bayonets away from people? We can't let them have bayonets because that's not safe. We can't trust them. It was an accident. What the fuck? It's terrible, but I mean, we just going to neuter everybody because of an accident?
Yeah.
And that's once all this bullshit dies down and people like us aren't in their ear and they're sitting in the E-ring and they're talking, what are we going to do? Are we going to have a military without pistols? Is somebody going to be brave enough to go, are we going to have a military with pistols that kill our own soldiers? Or are we going to have a military without pistols? Or is somebody going to be brave enough and go, fuck it, somebody call Cabela's, we're buying Glock? I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know. I wish I knew,
And realistically, with the way our government bureaucracy works, probably nothing for a long time. Except a lot of bloviating and pontificating and armchair experts and opinions being floated everywhere. And the longer something festers, the easier it is to not change in the military.
Yeah, you basically just described this podcast. Thank you very much. I'm dude, I'm sitting right here. You don't see me. So yeah, I mean, bureaucratically, either something's going to happen on Monday, or something's not going to happen for years. It's usually not in between. So I don't know what's going to happen, but hopefully this will be the last episode we ever have to do on the SIG P320. Don't hold your breath.
Yeah.
Anything else?
Oh, we could just give them all FN57s.
We'll save that for the next episode.
Little teaser.
Someone just appropriated an FN57. So
who swore he never ever would in his life.
They're great for the reference collection. You've got an FN57 and the company officially does not. How does it feel, player?
Hey, I'm just a professional gun whore.
Yeah. All right. Well, this wraps up episode 377 of the John1911 Podcast. You want to see more stories or pictures and links and stuff like this? Please go to the website at john1911.com. That's JOHN1911.com. Remember, it's all about shooting guns and having fun, everybody.
Be safe.
Have a good day.